always learning and growing, attracting the right people, and keeping your vision in focus every day. This is the Brian Covey Show.
Oh, it is good to be back, friends. So happy 2021. I'm sure you've heard it. We put 2020 in the past. And what better way to kick off the new season, the new year, and everything with my good friend, Evan Stewart. Welcome back.
Thank you so much, Brian. I'm so glad to be here. We had such a great conversation last time. So much in our climate has shifted in so many different ways, right? Some positive, some not so much, but I'm super glad to be here because I think that it's prime time for us to dig back into similar narratives as it relates to individuals actually making 2021 their year, right? We've heard that 1,000 times over. So glad to be here, man. Thanks for having me.
Dude, I'm pumped. So if you guys heard the first episode, I'll give you a little bit of backdrop there so you know. We talked about everything from purpose and kind of unpack some of the myths around starting with why and waiting until you just found your purpose. We talked about how you need to take action and actually align that up. And you may love some aspects of what you do, but I loved how Evan talked about using your gifts. We also talked about calling, which was really cool. Had a lot of great feedback on that. This one's going to be different today. This was actually sparked from a conversation. Evan had put up a video that some of you that follow Evan have seen it. If you haven't, we'll put a link to it later. We'll make sure you have it there. And it really was a different side of Evan that I resonated with. And I loved it because you're going, hey, look, let's cut through the BS. Let's cut through all of this crap that people are talking about right now. And it's all the fluff. It's all the stuff that you feel good, but then you get no results from it. And so we're going to unpack some of that today because the video I thought was just spot on. And I know we align there. But then also I went through one of your seminars and kind of courses that I'm still learning on the wartime CEO, which for any leaders out there, maybe you're just a leader of your house. You know, you're a mom or dad and you got kids. Maybe you work at your church or you're leading a business, any of that. There were some lessons upon that. And then also, you know, the side of being healthy. Everybody's probably wanting to get more fit, get in shape, whatever it is. You're on now another round of 75 hard, which most people have heard about this, but
that's right.
I want to talk about some of that stuff because I think there's some alignment with all of them and how they all are a little bit interconnected, right? And I think that is where we'll be able to pull out some nuggets for you guys today. And you're going to learn not only how Evans led through this, but some of the modeling that he shared with me and I'm actually implementing with our team and super excited to unpack this with you.
I'm excited to be here too. I love all of that, and I cannot wait to dig in. So let's get started.
Let's do it. Hey, let's start with a video, right? Because I'm sitting back, and you were talking earlier, like, yeah, I had friends reaching out saying it was different. It was an edgier side of Evan. it was a different version. So let's let you just kind of frame that up a little bit of what inspired you on, you know, kind of make the video, and then what was that message, and then we'll kind of move into some of the feedback because I think all those together. Dude, you dropped some bombs on that, which I want everybody else to get a chance to learn from that.
Sure. Thank you. And you're right. It was, so basically for the side of your audience that didn't see or hasn't heard what I put out, basically I was in a app called Clubhouse in a specific room where an individual was talking about a business idea. And she had a good side of the market laid out. And the advice that was being given from some individual speakers was not it was wrong. It was legitimate wrong. And the reason why this video was a different side of Evan, because I'm not the guy that calls people out. I'm always I usually do things in a way where I try not to piss people off. Well, that's kind of going out the window in 2021, because what I recognized is we need more people actually standing up for what's right. And what's right isn't just a morality issue. It's also an issue in education and information, because essentially this individual was saying, I have my market and I really just need to know how to put these pieces together. And the advice was like, well, get connected with your why. And you should know you just sit down and journal it. And I'm like, I'm sitting there going, what are you talking about? That's not it at all. And so, I was a little more animated. I'm working on just kind of turning on a camera when I'm really in a specific feeling, a certain type of way and talking. But really what it comes down to is, and what inspired this whole conversation is, gone are the days where we need to listen to the gurus and the motivation. Now, I don't necessarily hate motivation. I don't think that it has a time and a place. And sure, I love being inspired and seeing inspiring people. But you know what's more inspiring than anything? Waking up and actually going to a business that works.
Amen.
Making money, right? Personal development goes out the window when bills come in the door. I don't care if you're in the best shape of your life. If you come home to a stack of pink slips, all that time at the gym and all that momentum is going to go out the window. And so in reality, what we need to do is have conversations that are actually real advice, real strategy. And I'm specifically talking to my business people. If you're trying to grow a company, no amount of figuring out your why and journaling is going to bring in new revenue. Yeah, of course, maybe at some point you sit down and you lead with why. I'm not saying that's not important, but when you're trying to get your first 5 clients, journaling about it is not the same as actually achieving it. And we'll get into that. And so I think this year, the first thing that I want to just elaborate on is this ideology of starting to ask questions from the information that you're getting, right? So the individual that's giving this information, what's the second step and the third step? Yeah. Because something that I identified is a person that actually knows what she's talking about is able to create a streamlined process from A to Z, not just give you the first nugget. And that's kind of what we were dealing with there. So all that to say, the video was one of many more to come. And I do believe that this is a year that we need to shift our narrative of really what we're accepting. Because if you accept these wrong narratives, these guru mentalities, if you accept the falsehoods, if you accept these circumstances that we're working in, well, then it just continues to breed and grow. And that's a virus more infectious than Corona, in my opinion. So, yeah, absolutely.
And I love that too, because, too often we find people that are like, I'm going to, find that purpose. And we talked about that before, and find my why. And then I'm going to go do these things. And my experience has been, I've got to start doing things. I know things that I like. Maybe I love some of them. And I'm going to find out, what am I good at? And then I always think in business, what are people willing to pay me for that I do, and I do it well? And then we both kind of aligned on this is, what are the skills now? I really believe in 2021. What are the skills I need to work on that are going to accompany that to make sure that I'm at an elite level? I'm not just average. I'm not just good. How do I get to a spot that people would seek Evan or Brian out for this?
Yeah.
And when you were going into this, I love the video, because I love how you said, okay, that's great. There's step 1. And we talk about in our business, right? In the mortgage business, it's very simple. You need to find a customer, but then you need to serve that customer's needs. And there's all this marketing and stuff that's fancy and all that happens after.
Sure.
If I can't find a customer and show up where my customers are, I have no business. I have no one to impress. I have no experience to deliver. I have no product at that point, right? I'm just sitting here going, I hope they call me today. That's not going to last. That's not going to work.
Well, that's not business ownership either. And that's why I spoke a lot in 2020 when COVID happened. Since we work with so many businesses, we had a lot of inbound questions. Well, what now? And it was definitely kind of, baptism by fire for us as people that lead other companies in counsel. But what we found is that, really there's 4 areas that you grow a company, and the order shouldn't really change that much under only select circumstances. Number 1 never changes, but it's revenue, relationships, awareness, and structure. You got to have money, period. Oh, well, I'm going to, I heard a story of a real estate agent who just sat in Starbucks and shook hands all day. Well, now you're the nice guy that buys people coffee, but that doesn't mean that you're a good real estate agent. Right. So let's get real about it. Revenue first, getting to the money, closing the deals, actually asking for the business, right? The hardest conversation you can ever have is, what card do you want to put that on? How do you want to pay for this? Or just, I would love you to be a customer. How do we make that happen? Right. And having real direct conversations. Because when I call, hey, Brian, just checking in.
Yeah.
No, I'm not. You know exactly what's going on. The consumer does too. So revenue, relationships, awareness, and structure. But like you said, it's all of it is built on the back of new money coming in. I want my systems to break, my structures to break because of the influx of new business. I want the relationships to be built through transactions. Now, you can be relational over transactional, but that doesn't mean that you have to be nice and just a friend to everybody without necessarily asking for business. They can go hand in hand. The awareness piece. I know so many people that sit down saying, I'm going to drive revenue, and then they build out an email campaign. No, that's not what I'm talking about here. You need to have people to email to, and the best people are the people who have come to you before, aka clients, aka revenue, that type of thing. And it's not rocket science. It's just 2020 amplified the struggles of so many people, but more importantly, it amplified the fact, going back to what we first touched on, is the vast majority of entrepreneurial spirits aren't faltering. They're not failing because of a lack of work ethic, because of a lack of wanting to do more. Sure, there are people that don't work hard, but just most people don't know how to apply their effort. And they think that if I spend all day in MailChimp, that I'm actually doing something, when in reality, they refuse to recognize that I just did what I could have paid somebody $8 an hour to do. And I wasted an entire day of my life not being an executive, but being a technician.
Wow. And you just hit on something that we've really been looking at, and I'm looking at for 2021, is I'm starting to outsource some things that I've realized I am not as good at. And as we start to scale the business, it really is, as an entrepreneur and a business owner, and however you view yourself. But if you're leading that team, I've started to really discover the power of, if you do that exceptionally well, and we want to deliver the best product and best experience, we want to get to customers effectively.
Yes.
There are other avenues to get there. The old mentality was always, I'm going to do it all myself. No one can do it better than me. I got to control it all. Ooh, that couldn't have been any further from the truth. Last year showed that strategy is going to run you in the ground. You're going to be exhausted, and you probably will get beat by your competitors who said, you know what, I'm going to invest strategically in these areas, and I'm going to scale the business. And now you've got a multi-million-dollar business versus you're struggling to get to the first million.
Absolutely. Right? Well, you touch on something, no one can do it like I can. And let's take 30 seconds to touch on that. Yeah. Because if you're listening to this, I guarantee you're either in that mindset, you've broken that mindset, or frankly, you're controlled by that, which goes back to being in it. But no one can do it quite like me. What that actually exposes, not to put anybody against a wall, is I have an insecurity that I'm trying to fulfill because I'm slightly a perfectionist, and I haven't ever found somebody that has the confidence for me to implore them to go out and do this work. And so therefore it comes back on my shoulders, right? Oh, if it has to be me, then it has to be done right. Therefore, I'm the one that has to do it. Well, how arrogant is that to say that I'm the only person on the face of this earth that can do this right? Yeah. Right? And there are very few, there are some things where that's the reality, right? If you're an artist, no one can create art quite like you.
Sure.
But everything else is pretty much, you can find people that can plug and play in different professions. And so that mindset is not an entrepreneurial ownership mindset. That's a technical mindset. That's a mindset of, I am going to hide behind the mask of my labor, because God forbid, if I have other people do these things, I'm going to be forced into a situation where A, I have to lean into creating accountable systems, and I might not be a person that's accountable. And then B, what I will become accountable to myself is producing results. Yeah. And I tell you what, my days look a lot better when I can say I worked 18 hours, even though I was just working an email, than when I have to be stranded in the middle of nowhere and my only option back is to produce revenue. And a lot of people don't like that accountability, so they hide behind that mask. So I appreciate you bringing that up.
Well, I think that's important this year, because some of the things I started to take away, and I'd love to pick your brain on this, is I think for leaders and people that are business owners, and I learned from this wartime CEO that you were talking about last year, that, wow, it couldn't be any more important this year. I almost feel like, thank goodness I was able to prepare and have some of those lessons.
Oh, we're doing that again too, by the way. We're about to go really hard on that mentality, because it's still wartime more than ever.
I mean, clearly, as we air, we know what happened yesterday, and there are things that are happening around us that we're realizing that getting our mentality right. And the wartime CEO, for the people that don't know it, you might just give them a little like inside kind of look behind the curtain as to what it is, so that we can frame it up, because it was impactful for me. I think every leader should go through it. Personally, it's one of those that it just changes you, where you won't be the same leader after you go through it. You can't be if you paid attention at all, right?
Absolutely. Well, actually, we're ironically enough, we're turning that into a robust boot camp experience, where it's not just because when you were on, we were testing this new webinar format as we were leaning into this new normal. But for the audience that doesn't know, essentially, the wartime CEO is not a ideology that I invented. It's been a terminology that's thrown around from time to time. But the wartime CEO mentality is the business owner that's able to operate efficiently in times of crisis, in times of war. They're able to push deeper into discomfort in times of retreat. They're able to lead a team through really trying times. 2020 was the wartime CEO. The wartime CEO is not the aggressive alpha male. The wartime CEO is the baker that goes back to her bakery in her kitchen of 8 people and says, we're not going to close. We're not going to quit. We're going to continue to push forward, and we're going to continue to stay in business so your children can be fed. The wartime CEO is the person that confidently moves forward, that says, I have no idea, come hell or high water, how I'm going to drive revenue, but I know we're going to do it. And everybody get on this mission. Get on this mission or freaking get off the ship. That's right. The wartime CEO. The wartime CEO is the mentality that takes you through situations like this. Look, we are, 7 days in to 2021 already? Yeah. And there's been a craziness. If you thought that something magical was going to happen because 2021 comes around and, oh my gosh, last year was so bad, therefore this year is going to be good. I actually think this decade's going to be really tough. I really, really do. And I'm not trying to be negative. I'm trying to be real. Because for those of you that thought, oh, we can just strap in and ride it out, you're full of it. You're going to lose. Absolutely. You have to prepare, because only those that prepared can actually come out of this alive. Yes. And especially to my business owners out there, what I'm talking about existentially in reality is coming out of this alive is not having to constantly look your employees in the face and have death by 1,000 cuts. And we're doing more layoffs and we're doing more layoffs and we're doing more layoffs, creating a culture of insecurity. I'm talking about building businesses that can thrive in a new normal, which there is a new normal, even though it's not necessarily the lockdowns and all of that craziness we saw last year. The new normal is the consumer that no longer has the patience or the diligence or the time to vet you completely. You either are or you aren't someone that they can do business with relatively soon. Technology and the presence and all these little infrastructures that people have been playing with, you have to lean into in order to develop the leadership in order to win. That's the wartime CEO mentality, and it's more important than ever.
Dude, and I love that. And that challenged me. And I'm on this mission this year that I think I'd shared with you, Evan, is I'm starting to share not only more in the trenches of what am I doing? What are the things our team is doing? Because I think giving away those secrets and adding value, look, you've still got to go execute them. It's like I can give you a workout plan. You got to go work out. Like you got to eat healthy. You got to do it. And that challenged me because I think this started to where I saw an opportunity to build my brand and to share things online, to your point of customers are going to go online for many services, definitely in real estate and mortgage. And I wanted them to be, if they found Brian or Loan Depot and they found us, they'd go, wow, we like these people. We can align up. There's some commonalities. We want to do business with them because we like them. And it's actually happening to a large degree, attracting the right people. It's helping us recruit people. But you really, whether you know it or not, challenged me during that was, am I being strong enough in my message? And I think that's where we aligned up this year is my message is going to get stronger because it needs to be more polarizing and it's not for everybody.
Yes.
Okay, right. And we all struggle with that. So I don't know if, you could speak to it, but it's that struggle of, you want to be nice. And heard Andy Frisella talking about the other day of like, look, nice is not good anymore. You know what I mean? Like you need to buckle in and actually almost have that wartime CEO mentality. So how do people get over that? Like being afraid of like polarizing, but to get their message cut through some of this noise and kind of being true to themselves. Cause you do this.
The difference between you being an asshole and you actually being a person that stands in a polarizing message is your conviction, right? Because if I just go out insulting people, I'm kind of an ass.
That's not gonna work.
No, it's not. But if I'm saying that I am so passionate about this mission, so passionate about this ideology, I am truly an evangelized individual for this specific mission or message or conviction or purpose or passion, that in that I'm going to stand firm in a way where people who they're either with me or they're not. And you're right. We kind of opened the show with, well, I don't typically like to disrupt the waters. Why? Up until 2020, that was me. I was coming out of luxury real estate. It was a very, buttoned up industry where you just kind of were very professional. You know what I looked at? I looked at my life and I looked at my business and I said, I need to really grit my teeth and fight. And it's really hard to fight when you got to keep that suit buttoned up. It's really hard to get into fighting posture and stance and push forward. And so realistically, it's the first question if you're kind of going through that ideology of, well, I want to stand for something. Equinox did a campaign back in 2016, 2017 called Commit to Something, which is a gym. For those of you that know, they're a luxury gym around the United States and maybe parts of Europe as well. But they created this campaign, which is really interesting, which was commit to something. Now, the idea was commit to gym membership, but it doesn't matter what you commit to something. If you're going to commit to being a slob, if you're going to commit to being overweight and unhealthy, then commit to it and go all in. If you're going to commit to something, commit fully. And that's the same thing as it relates to that polarizing message is I looked back at my year in 2019 and in 2020 as I really fostered this mentality in my own mindset coming into 2021. And I basically looked at what I wanted to commit to. And I looked at committing to not being a business that has to give excuses for how and why we operate the way we do, because we stand behind our mission and our message. Not being a business for everybody. I don't want all of my customers. I want customers that believe what we believe so we can create an army together and go achieve our mission strategy. I want to stand behind the convictions of not needing to apologize for who we are, not because we're insulting, but because we're so passionate behind our purpose that we don't need to make adjustments in how we operate on a day-to-day basis. And in doing so, when you take a stance in those ideologies, people will not like it. But the problem is we've got this huge group of amazing men and women that they're so ambiguous and gray that they're not distinguished from the person next to them. Look, love him or hate him, Brian, the reason why you mentioned Andy Frisella is the dude is polarizing, right? He got significantly more polarizing. You either love him or you don't, right? It's the same thing on the opposite end of the spectrum. And I believe that standing in those convictions first and then having a definitive line. There are such things as winners and losers. There is such thing as a yes or no. There is such thing as a right or wrong. Maybe not right or wrong factually, but right or wrong for you. Draw the line and then stand firm, right? My mother, who's an English major, used to say that no is a complete sentence. No, period. Grammatically correct, it is literally a complete sentence. But maybe it's the year that we start saying no, but have a reason why, you know?
Man, and how many of us this year need to say no to more things, you know? And yesterday I caught myself, you know, as the news was breaking and all this stuff, and it was like, nope, let's move away. Like, let's not get pulled into those things. And saying no, it used to be selfish. You know, I used to almost struggle with that. Like, I'm being selfish, when no actually opened up the best opportunities and the things that I should be doing. And you talked about commitment. So this is one thing you're doing right now. And I know we've talked about this before. I'd love your insights on, before we kind of move into this other topic I want to touch on.
Sure.
Why do you think people, I mean, it's New Year's, right? And I still see people struggling with commitment. Year after year, we come in and do the same song and dance, and people are like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, and it's the 7th. And reality is, I don't know the statistic, but let's just say a large percent, maybe even half, have already fallen off, right? Like, not on track. And it's okay, because your friends are going to come around you. I've heard some like, oh, it's okay, just do better tomorrow. And there is a lack of what you said. We use this in our culture, is going all in means doing things when you don't feel like it. I mean, straight up, it just means having the difficult conversations. Maybe you're following up and covering for someone that's out, and you're making the phone calls and doing the work that no one's ever going to see. It's not going to show up on a scoreboard, but you're doing it to prepare, almost like the leadership journey of you're going to classes or you're going to spend time with people and you're getting better. No one's ever going to see some of that stuff.
Right.
But I sense people still lack this commitment. It's like they do it, but they're not all in. And there's a difference, right? So I'd love for you to speak to that, because
I think there's a few different things. Ultimately, most people would rather live a life that's comfortable than live a life of mediocrity, or they would rather be in the comfort, I should say, than lean into the discomfort that produces amazing results. Which, frankly, I don't blame them. I mean, I really don't. Like, who would? Anybody that says that, oh, I wouldn't rather be comfortable is, you know, outside of talking about the achievement of personal growth and the discomfort that accompanies it. In reality, we all want to be comfortable.
Yeah.
But I think there's also a more real sense that kind of falls out of the, well, you don't want it bad enough kind of guru mentality, which is that most of the time the environments that we have don't support our growth naturally, which is why we're in those comfort states to begin with.
Yes.
So I'll give you an example. My friend comes to me and says, I want to work out. And I've set a New Year's resolution on November 30th. My response was, well, you're overweight. You're right. And I love you for it. But you know what? If you want to work out and you really want it, you're going to do it today, or you're full of shit. Yeah. Excuse my language. Fool bought a gym membership on November 29th and he got into it. And that's the type of environment where creating and it's the same thing both ways, where maybe if I know, Brian, if I call you and I'm kind of brainstorming about something I probably should do, you're going to do the same thing. Hey, Evan, listen, I hear you, brother, but you need to either do it or not. Yeah. And most people don't have environments where people will tell you, like, look, hey, thank you for coming. You're right. You should be working out, actually. In fact, you should do it today. Yeah. And if you don't do it today, then you simply don't want it. And you have to either commit to the fact that you don't want it or commit to the fact that you do. Yeah. So the first step is looking around your environment and building it if you don't have it. So ways that we build it is, when I was early into my career and really kind of building, I was with Brittany, who was my girlfriend at the time, who's now my amazing wife. And I'd have conversations like, when I get done with the day, I really need you to help keep me accountable on coming home. So I would come home, for example, and or you know, maybe we'd have a date night on the books or something. Hey, we've got this coming up. Hey, well, how many clients did you have today? How many sales did you have today? Let's talk about this. Well, I didn't really hit my goal. Well, then why are you here? Yeah. Right. So to have a spouse that would say that in a loving way, obviously, right, we want to be together, but have a spouse that would say that like, Brian, why are you coming home, man? Did you earn your right to pull in this driveway? See, most of us don't have that. We don't want that, or we can't build that. And actually, I think that's more of a reality than people not wanting it, because I truly believe that the intentions are good of people. I buy the gym membership on January 1st because I'm inspired. Well, the problem is you're inspired, but inspiration goes away immediately, just like showering, which means that the day is over and then tomorrow comes. And then all of a sudden you're back in the same habits where you wake up and it's a little bit later and your wife says, it's okay, you can sleep in because yesterday was a big day. And all of a sudden you're a week into it and you've completely fallen off. I think that structure is really what's missing more so than the initial inspiration, because that point of inspiration gets you in momentum. You buy the gym membership, but then what if the next day maybe you have home automation and all the lights come on and all your alarms go off in every single room at 5 o'clock in the morning. You're running around the house. All of a sudden you're up, and it's much easier. That's the slide edge principle, right? It's much easier to take action once you put your feet on the floor. And our environments don't typically have that. So to be honest, Brian, I think that's more of a reality than not even wanting it, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on that, actually.
And that is real, because I can look back at my own journey and when I struggled just using the working out piece, because I think that correlates to our mentality for the rest of the day and the next day and weeks ahead. Because I struggled when I was trying to run on my own, or I was even doing like Insanity from the house. And it was just Brian. And I realized there was a point you said, I was having to really re-inspire and re-motivate myself so much. I'm the guy that was watching the motivational video and I'm like pumping myself up, like, let's go do this. And I found I was much more inconsistent than when I joined a gym and actually got into classes. They have pre-programmed workouts. You have coaches there on site. I know where I'm going. I know the times. I can sign up. I'm accountable. And to your point, you have people that typically in those classes, it's the same kind of group of people that show up, and you talk outside the office, which is a huge benefit. But I realized for me, I needed that, because growing up playing soccer and having structured practices, structured training, structured weight room sessions, I just know myself, and I have a higher probability of showing up and getting it done if I do it earlier in the day. I'm going to a pre-scheduled class and I have coaches there and people around me working out, which brings out that almost that athlete mentality in me where I'm like, if somebody else is working, I don't care where they are in the workout. That's not my jam. But my jam is if I look around and I start to take a break too long, or I'm slacking off at all, somebody might see that. And I have this pressure in a way of like, gotta go. So I've realized, for me, that's the commitment. And for many people, you nailed it. If you're truly committed, you'll take action immediately. And I had one of those moments the other day, dude. It was one of those where I was like, and I'm talking to myself, right? Like two voices, Brian's having a conversation. My daughter picks up running over the break, and she trains, she does soccer and all that. She's like, hey, I want to pick up my running. She comes to me and she wants to run later in the day. And it was cold that day, like windy, like not ideal weather, probably like what you had yesterday.
Yeah.
Dad, I want you to go with me. And I'm like, man, I don't want to get dressed. I already worked out today. Like, I'm good. And she just looked at me. She's like, well, don't you want to come, like, just run with me? Like, it's just a little bit like, you can do this. You worked out this morning, but you're recovered by now. And I'm like, oh man, yes, I'm going to go. And I remember going, and it was like literally about 5 minutes into it, my brain, it was something like the endorphins drop where I'm like, first 5 minutes, not so good. 5 minutes in, I'm like, I'm glad I went. And then I was gifted with the walk back. Once we had run, then I walked back and I had about 10 minutes just to chat with my daughter. And I thought, I kind of looked at that. That was almost like God's way of saying, hey, good job for going and doing this. Now the gift is you're going to get this time to talk with your daughter. But I had the voices, man. They were there and battling. It's real.
Let's talk about an ideology that can help, because I do enjoy tactical as well, just kind of giving things. And of course, obviously your show is all about things that people can take away. There's a rule that I started to implement, which I found to be incredibly powerful. And it's very simple, which is great. It can be implemented immediately. It's just a decision. And that is to make the decision after. That's it. Don't want to get up? Okay, well, I'm going to make the decision after. So I will get up and I'll begin my day. And then maybe if it was a bad decision, well, I'll go back to sleep. Well, you and I both know that that's not what happens. But it's this constant mindset of making the decision after, where almost it's not in the moment of, I have to get up or not, I have to work out or not. It's I'll work out and then after I'll decide if it was a good idea or not. And it's almost, it's a mental game, right? It's almost pushing off the responsibility of, hey, crazy devil on my shoulder, right? The dichotomy of this, the tension of what I want and what I need. You know what? I'll give you your time. Just give me a moment. But you just continue doing it again and again and again with healthy decisions. I'll make the decision after. Oh my gosh, I'm hungry. I want to go through the drive-thru. Well, I'll tell you what, I'll have this healthy food and then I'll make the decision. And sometimes Rarely, but sometimes you go, wow, that was a terrible decision. That was a horrible decision. Maybe I can't run 5 miles. I can run through. But then what happens is you adjust and you make the decision after, and now you're working with data and not speculation. And that's key. So if you struggle with that, if you're listening to this or watching this and you feel that, well, that's all good for you, Brian, that's all good for you, Evan, but my self-will is just, it's not there. I've never really built that discipline. I'm really struggling. I would just say, start with making decisions after you've made the decision, with giving yourself permission to execute after you've already executed, kind of in arrears. And I think you'll find that actually that little tweak alone can give you a lot of momentum, healthy momentum in a positive direction.
That alone is worth the nice free cost of admission today of just, and you think about, but that is the takeaway. And I love these conversations because that's the thing that comes out that you go, well, that one thing that is going to trigger a thought next time that I'm like, okay, I'm going to go do this. I'm just going to go do it. And then to your point, then afterwards we'll evaluate whether it was good, bad, great, whatever. And I think that would help people because it's all I've found, just stacking those habits and those almost responses in a way to know that, for example, if my daughter asked me to go run again, it was much easier the next 5 times she asked. I was like, cool, let's go. I mean,
well, the caveat is they're healthy decisions, right? Don't use that as an excuse. If I want to go eat fast food and I want to go watch this movie and I want to go, after that was a great decision. I mean, obviously, if you're listening, you know where we're coming from. But I do want to give that quick disclaimer because there's going to be that one person that walks away. It's like Evan and Brian told me to go and make decisions to watch Netflix and quit my job, and so
it's going to be amazing. I'm going to be comfortable and all these. So
that's right. That's right.
So let's jump into that because you have done something now. You're doing another round of 75 Hard, which most people, hopefully they know Andy Frisella's program they put together. And I love this because it encompasses, it's more than, this, it's more than fitness. It's more than even mentality and different things. But I'd love to know what number one inspired you to do it the first time, and then you're doing it again. So let's talk about that because and maybe even start with what it actually is because I don't think people know the actual criteria every day. There's a daily checklist of things you got to accomplish to actually succeed.
Yeah. So the basic program last year, we started with 75 Hard. This year we're starting with 75 Hard again, but I'm actually doing the Live Hard program, which encompasses the year in some different iterations. But essentially 75 Hard, for those of you that don't know, in a nutshell, it's a mental discipline program that requires quite a bit of physical movement. So you have to drink a gallon of water a day. You have to read 10 pages of a personal or professional growth book, not listening. You can read, it can, be a Kindle or something, but you have to read 10 pages of a personal development or professional development book. You have to work out twice a day. One of the workouts has to be outside regardless of the weather. And both workouts have to be for a minimum of 45 minutes. It's 45 minutes of effort, not just 45 minutes of sitting on a dumbbell machine. You have to have a progress picture every single day. And then you have to follow a diet. Doesn't matter what diet it is, or you just can't have any alcohol, and whatever you choose is a meal plan or a diet or a strategy. You have to follow that consistently to a T with 0 cheat days for 75 days straight. So it's roughly 5 stronger disciplines that you have to do on a daily basis consistently. So we started this last year in 2020 in January. I actually started this with my company because we talk about accountability. I wanted to do it, but I also knew that there would be more accountability for us to finish as the leader, right? I have my employees and my team doing the program. Well, I really don't have an option. Like I have to finish it and I have to finish strong. So that was good. And then we had such success. We came off with such momentum. Everyone was so just focused and streamlined. We thought, you know what, this is pretty good. We need to do this again. So we made it an annual event where at the beginning, January 1, you sign on in our company, you're doing 75 Hard, and you do that. It'll end roughly mid-March, 75 days into the year.
Yep.
And you come out of it with a lot of strength. I think to answer your question as far as why is throughout the year, we fall back into these rhythms of comfort, which is fine. But the most productivity, the most growth, the most I've ever seen just in recouping the positive investment on my time and my energy and my resources has been on the back of incredibly uncomfortable, high discipline scenarios like 75 Hard. And so we just looked at it again, made the decision on if it was good or poor after, saw the data. We're all working better. There's spikes in numbers. The team's more aligned. Everyone looks great and is healthy because they've been working out and eating right for 75 days. And for us, it was a good decision to implement moving forward. It's our fourth core value that we're really living out of growth, where greatness isn't good enough, where yesterday's accomplishments don't carry over. So a lot of different reasons as to why, but we love the program.
I love it. So the first round you guys went through last year, what would you say was your biggest takeaway?
Biggest takeaway was really reapplying a time management. Last year, the problem was, and we're not going to have this year, the issue obviously with Corona and whatnot, but the problem was at the beginning of the year, I'm speaking, I'm touring, I'm doing a whole lot of stuff all around the United States, Canada, around the world. And what I found was 75 hard wasn't too bad at home.
Yeah.
But then you find yourself doing burpees at 3:30 in the morning after being up for 23 hours in Canada, after just walking out in 3-degree Fahrenheit weather in February. That's when it gets a little bit harder. And so it was, regardless of the environment, what we found, the discipline that we built that was hard and then became a solid, just part of the practice, was building structures that are scalable to any environment that you're in. Yeah. So whether we're in Mexico, whether we're in Florida, Texas, which is where we operate, that's we're in the Dallas area, Canada, wherever we are physically, it also translates to where we are emotionally and mentally. And that structure that allows to be scaled and malleable and flexible, that's huge, because we didn't have that going into it. And so this year, I don't want to say that it's easy, because it's not, but I do want to say that the discipline that we've built has substantially been, it's a significantly less disruptive event than it was last year. I don't want to say it's easy, but it's not nearly as difficult the second time around, now that we have those structures in place.
Yeah, I could see that, because it is really like, once you've done it, you're aware of what's going to be hard for you, because each person is probably going to struggle in different areas of, maybe it is the water. That's something I know a lot of friends, and for me, drinking a gallon of water, it was a rude awakening of, that's a lot of water.
It is a lot of water. Yeah.
Drink a lot of water, Brian, but you should. And I would love to know, now that you guys are going on this, because I think people sometimes, you're kind of in the early stage. What are you hoping to get out of this next round for you and maybe the team? What's that kind of at the end? What are you hoping for that'll be accomplished?
Honestly, I hope that my team and the community that's taking this journey with us is finding the beauty of just living an intensely disciplined life. Some of you have maybe read or heard of the book Extreme Ownership by Jocko, and his idea and mentality is that discipline equals freedom. Yeah. And that is actually what it is that discipline equals freedom. But for me personally, to be quite honest with you, I and this is going to sound a little bit weird, but I want 2021 to be really, really rough. Like 2020 was a tough year in a business standpoint, but for me personally, I kind of had good habits, and I had to dig in and help these companies and help my company and make sure things don't go under and start this new business and do all these things that we do. But in reality, it wasn't the type of demand. Like, I want the grit that the wartime CEO needs to really, really push. I want it to be really, really tough. And so I'm looking at doing Live Hard this year. I'm looking at doing, I'm starting my research on the project, which is, Bedros, that's his thing, which is 75 hours straight of intense SEAL level, hazing essentially. But just these things that continue to push you to where you recognize, look, if I can operate in this incredibly intense environment, then coming back into the office and managing the employees, coming back on stage and speaking to these people, coming back and doing what I do on a daily basis, it almost has little, it doesn't matter anymore, in the sense of the effort required is not even, you can't even compare it to what you just went through. And so all of a sudden, your standard in your ability to operate is worlds above what you used to strive for. So that's really what I'm looking for. And hopefully the people that are we're following us on this journey are finding the same thing. But for me personally, that's what we're going after.
That's so cool. And, I would just say your team is blessed, because you are a leader among leaders that are living it out. And it almost takes us full circle. When we started just talking about how this is going to be a year that people are going to need to get real and raw. And I'm with you on, I hope it is uncomfortable, in the sense of, if we're all able to level up and we're all able to, in a way, face some of the things we need to face head on, we're going to be stronger and better for it. And that's going to translate into business and into relationships in all that we do. And so I'm with you on, I always loved in sports, when the game got harder, you could tell who was really all in and who was willing to pay the sacrifice. And this is going to separate people out. I know in our industry, it is going to separate out people that appear to be successful. Maybe the market has contributed to that.
Mhm.
And people that have done the work behind the scenes that no one's going to see, nobody's going to know about, but they're going to lean in. And so I would applaud all of you that are listening. If you're on that journey, hopefully today you've taken some things away that Evan and I have shared here. And if you'd like to learn more, obviously check out our show, Brian Covey Show. Go to www.briancovey.com. We got the new book coming out, which Evan's actually featured in. I am super stoked about this.
Yeah, that's exciting.
Man, this one's gonna be great. I've been sharing this with some people, but just a little preview on the Conversations with Covey is going to take some of these conversations like today, and we're gonna unpack them and give them into you a way. It's basically that Reader's Digest of several people like Evan, how they've overcome adversity, what their story was, but then actual tangible lessons like you learned today. Not just make you feel good, not give you a little hope and inspiration, although some of the stories will not only give you that, some will make you probably tear up. They did with many of us, but it's actually going to give you things that you can go apply. And that's really what the show is all about, why we did it. Evan, I can't thank you enough. This has been good, dude. I love jamming with you. And you always bring something, whether it's a fresh perspective or just an intensity around something that needs to be, kind of amplified up, that needs to be not just kind of a buzzword. It needs to be unpacked and go, okay, this is what we're going to do, right? Like, here are the steps. Let's go.
That's right. Thanks for having me on.
It's been awesome. Guys, make sure you like, subscribe, leave some comments. Let us know how we're doing. If you have any other guests you'd like to have on the show, I'm going to be announcing several big things coming up in addition to the book. So make sure you guys stay in tune and we'll be connecting with that. It's been another edition of the Brian Covey Show. Appreciate you guys. Catch you next week. See ya.